Excellent.
Hello, everyone. I'm Janine Donnelly, Manager of Webinar for Independent Banker Magazine. And on behalf of Independent Banker Magazine and ICBA, I'd like to welcome you to our presentation. We will be holding a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. You may ask a question at any time during the event by entering it into the Q&A panel. If you experience technical difficulties during the webinar, please use the Q&A panel to alert us, and someone will assist you. You may download a PDF version of the slide deck by clicking on the drop-down menu labeled Event Resources, and you'll find that on the left side of your screen. Know that you can download those right from the platform without being disconnected from the webinar. Today's webinar, ICBA's #1 recommended secure document transfer platform, is sponsored by Botdoc. And now I'd like to turn it over to your first speaker for today, CEO and founder of Botdoc, Carl Falk. Carl, you now have the floor.
All right. Well, thank you, Janine. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to the ICBA, the banks. And my name is Carl Falk, CEO of Botdoc. Also in the room, we have Tracy Fart. Sorry, it's been a long day already. Tracy Fox, our Chief Revenue Officer, and also Jonathan Steenland's here as well, our Chief Innovation Security Officer. So I want to welcome everybody to the webinar. I know your time is precious, and we're going to try and get through this as quickly as possible. We promise this will not be death by PowerPoint. We're going to hit you with just a couple of slides, about 6 or 7. It'll take about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we're actually going to pull off a live demo. Actually, let some people who are on actually interact with the technology, and then we'll kind of wrap it up and tell you how some other ICBA banks are using Botdoc. So we'll try and keep it light and fun, and like I said, we won't put you to sleep, hopefully. So welcome, and so first off, Botdoc, our clients call us the secure FedEx of data. So if you kind of think about FedEx and that analogy in your head, it will help you kind of understand the technology a little bit better. So if you think about FedEx, they pick things up and drop them off. That's exactly what we do, just in the digital space. So FedEx, when they give you something at your front door, they no longer want to retain a copy of that. They also don't care where you put it. But they keep all the transaction history, so you know exactly who touched it, where it was, et cetera. We do the exact same thing, just in the digital space. So if you kind of keep that in the back of your mind, it will help the webinar today. So first off, we are an ICBA company. The ICBA did actually make an investment in us because they saw the applicability of this technology. And they didn't want it just to be used by the large financial institutions, so they wanted to be able to bring it to all the ICBA banks. So we've had numerous banks jump on this as early as this summer, and we have been onboarding almost weekly with new ICBA banks. And this is kind of our first webinar to really push it out to the masses, and we're glad we could do that today. So before we get to Botdoc, we'll kind of set the stage. Cybercrime, it's increasing. It's not going away. In fact, it's one of our greatest challenges as a global community that we're facing today into the future. And it used to just be large institutions that had to worry about it. And now hackers are a lot smarter. They have a lot more resources, and today everyone is an issue. So we're all focusing on that. So everyone, large institutions and small, are putting more and more emphasis around cybersecurity. And usually what we tell companies is, if you know nothing about cybersecurity, just knowing the U.S. government declared it a battle space will tell you exactly what the nature of this environment is today and what it looks like in the future. So what companies are doing, and a lot of you are experiencing this, is they're putting more and more layers of security around everything, their people, their processes, and their technology. which is great. It's what we all should be doing because we never want to expose or put a customer's information at risk. But all of this comes at a cost, this security, and the cost isn't financial. Cost is actually convenience. We're actually making business harder to do, and many of you that are online today have probably experienced that. Customer frustration with logging in or having to use a new piece of software they never used before. So we kind of talk about it like a child seesaw, one side being security and the other side being convenience. And over time, as we increase and continue to increase security, we're driving down convenience factors. And usually when we show this chart to a lot of people, they start laughing because they say, oh my gosh, this is my weekly, if not daily battle inside my company. Because at the end of the day, security says, hey, look, if we have exposure, we give into risk, and we have something that happens, I'm the one that gets fired. And everyone says, great, yeah, I get it, but operations says at the end of the day, if you make it any harder to do business, we're not going to have any customers to do business with. So we see a lot of companies do this, actually decrease security to increase those convenience factors. And this is unfortunate, but it happens. We see a lot of times companies who use non-technical, non-secure technical workarounds like unsecured email, or hey, just go ahead and text me a picture of that, or other means, because at the end of the day, operations wins because that's what it's all about, is that relationship. So we did this. We broke the seesaw. We're using the highest levels of security while also increasing convenience factors. What we're going to do, instead of boring you with more slides, is we're actually going to pull off a live demo and let actually play along. So what we're going to do is, if some of you, there's a Q&A section, we'll offer up your cell phone. You're just going to get a text message, and we promise we won't spam you after this. And what we're going to do is you're just going to get a text message, and you're going to be able to actually experience the technology and exactly how it works. So if you want to go to the Q&A section, nobody can see the Q&A except for the presenters. So we're not going to, publicly send out anything. And you can rest assured we're not going to, hack in and take over your cell phone. Companies like Edward Jones, some large financial institutions, Toyota Financial Services, even MEA Financial. If any of you guys use that platform, MEA is actually building Botdoc into their platform. So if any of you are MEA Financial clients, you'll actually be able to use the built-in version of Botdoc into the system. So we've got a couple numbers that came in. If there's anybody else that would like to experience a demo, we can get you teed up on that. So I think we've got, we'll pick 3 here. So Tracy is sharing his screen, and Janine, I just want to make sure that you can see Tracy's screen.
Yes, we can.
All right, excellent. So what Tracy's using is our product version. So we have an API version that large institutions build in, like I mentioned before, MEA and Edward Jones and Toyota, et cetera. But you guys, the independent community banks, you're not going to be necessarily dealing with the API. So we have a product, or we call it a SaaS-based tool, that you have a login to that you can now initiate. So this is what you're seeing is a screen share from Tracy and what the IC banks look like. So I think we've gotten, we'll just use, we'll do 4. That's plenty. So thank you for everyone. We can't get to all of you. And we'll give you an ability to try that afterwards. So Tracy's going to type you a quick message. We're not going to have you send us anything sensitive. And I'll actually walk you guys through the demo. And we'll do something that's really kind of fun and easy to do. So when Tracy hits send here, request, so in a second or two, you guys are going to receive a text message. So Tracy's going to go back, and for those aren't, so he's going to kill his screen share here for a second. So for those of you, so go back to the slides. So those of you that did not get the text message, if you can see here the screen, this is kind of the experience that everyone else is receiving. So real quick, so those of you who received the text message, you got a text message that Tracy Fox from Botdoc is requesting documents from you. So I want you to go ahead and click on that link that you received in the text message, and it's going to open up a secure page. So when you get to that secure page, once it opens up, you have two options. You can either add doc or send finish. So what we're going to have you do is select add doc, and then you're going to get a handful of options that pop up on the bottom of your phone, and I want each of you to select use camera or take picture, depending on your phone. And we're going to take a brand new picture of something. And there's a reason why I want you to take a brand new picture. I'll explain that later. So it can be your keyboard, it can be the screen in front of you, something on the wall, it doesn't matter, something not sensitive. And then once you do that, you're going to either hit OK or use photo, just depending on your phone. And then it's going to start to secure that item. Now, you could also, and I won't have you guys do that, so while it's securing, you could also hit add doc again, and you could grab a 5, 6, 7, 800 megabyte document off of Dropbox or Google Drive or OneDrive. I know a lot of your clients use cloud storage solutions like that. And a lot of times they want to just send you the document off of Dropbox, and your security people are like, yeah, we can't take Dropbox links. So this is a way for you to actually do that. So once it's secured, those items are going to pop back, or those buttons are going to pop back up. You don't have to wait for the preview. We're just going to go ahead and have you hit send finish. And then once you do that, you're going to get a confirmation page, and you'll actually see a picture of Tracy there. This is what we call his digital business card. No, so you gotta, yeah, there you go. So you're gonna see a message from, you see Tracy's picture along with his email and the select screen one. Sorry, we're just trying to switch back to the screen share here. And you've got his phone number and email there. This is something that you guys can set up as well for ICBA banks. You can actually set that up so either a picture or some other information shows. So what we're going to do now is we've got some of those requests that have come back. So if you look at your screen here, so we got a picture of the conference room. Here we go. All right, very sensitive document there. We'll pull up another one. Get a picture of a phone. Excellent. And we'll pull up the last one there. All right. So if you want to leave this one up, Tracy, real quick. So thank you all for participating. It's always special for us when we can do a webinar and let some people actually experience the technology as well. So you can see here we are able to reach out and grab items from you and pull it back right into Botdoc here securely. And we were able to pull this item up, and then we can download this item. We have the option of downloading it as a PDF. A lot of times in business you don't want to use a picture. And if any of you had sent in a PDF like off a Dropbox or Google Drive or something, it would show up just as if you had handed it to us on a thumb drive. So that's there as well. So you can also notice we have some transaction information here. We know time and date stamp of a message that was sent back, and also IP address. So it ultimately is a system of record for transport, so we know when things were picked up, dropped off, etc. All that is great, but fundamentally here's what all of you experienced or witnessed was end-to-end encryption between you and this system. And a couple of questions for each of you. You didn't have to download any apps or any software to do business with us today, correct? And the answer is yes, for those of you that didn't experience it. Also, nobody had to put in a PIN, a password, log into something, or create an account to some system you've never used before. You use things that you use on a daily basis, so it was easy and intuitive. Also, that link that you received, if you were to go back to that text message and click on it, that link is no longer usable. It's actually a one-time disposable use by design, so it's no longer an access or a hack point into a system. It's severed and it's cleared off. All you can see is Tracy's digital business card. Also, and probably most notably for a lot of companies, especially around cybersecurity, is that picture that each of you took only exists on one place in the entire world. If you guys were to go into your photo camera history and check your phones, those pictures do not exist on your phone. And in fact, our technology that transported into our application here has already overwritten and deleted it, so it's only sitting in the application, in the account that accessed it. So it's what's being called a zero digital residual footprint technology. So you're not leaving those poisonous breadcrumbs, those issues for potential access or hack point in the future into the system. So there's a lot of other features. So this is what we call a pull. Now we can also push things out. We won't do that as a demo today, but we can actually initiate a document and send it out in the same capacity. It can also be protected with a PIN if you want to, and this can be done via text or email. You know, just depending on how you're communicating with customer. So we'll go ahead and go back to the slides real quick, and we'll finish up here. And there's a lot more capabilities. There's another way that Botdoc's being used. So if you guys look at your screen, I will tell you that this is probably the #1 scenario of how ICBA banks are using Botdoc, is each individual account holder of Botdoc has a unique URL that's specific to their account. And these URLs are replacing fax numbers and email signature blocks and on some websites. But what it's allowing them to do, and this is a screenshot of an email of one of our clients, and what they do is they'll send a normal unsecured email and say, hey, John, here's the 6 things I need from you to complete your loan. Or, hey, you know, can you send me a picture of your driver's license to set up your account? And they just say, hey, click on the link in my email signature block and you can Botdoc them to me. So what now we're allowing that consumer to do is what we call a self-service or set it and forget it technology, where they can just click on it, initiate their own session, and send you whatever they want. And then you get an email notification saying that this email or this phone number has sent you a new item, and you can go and pull those out of your account. So between the on-demand, where we can actually go in and initiate a request, and this, it's being used pretty heavily in banking onboarding, pre-applications, and also underwriting the trailing documents for loans. So that's some capability. So at the end of the day, we were able to reach out and grab something from 4 people, pull items back securely into one system without imposing anything foreign on the other parties. So this is really kind of breaking down that seesaw that we talked about earlier. We're making things very easy and very, very secure. So if there's anything I can tell you to remember today after this call, is because of Botdoc, there is now a difference between the term sending something and sharing something. Now, most people say, well, what are you talking about, Carl? It's semantics. It's the same thing. It's actually not. So sharing, in the traditional sense, is 2 parties or more on the same system at the exact same time for the simultaneous exchange of data. It's a true collaborative environment, and that's needed sometimes, but over 95% of the time, when that sharing requirement is in place, you didn't need to share anything. What you really need to do is either pick something up or drop something off. So Sending now is different. Sending is removing one of those parties from the equation, and the party on the system can remote collect and send to the other party without imposing that sharing requirement. So our challenge to companies is, if you go back and look at your policies, your procedures, your people, and your technology, if you're ever imposing a sharing requirement on a sending situation, or sorry, I mixed that up, is if you're ever imposing a sharing requirement on a sending situation, you're putting too much friction in your transactions. You're probably spending too much money on the technology that is transporting your items, and you're putting in your business not as effective or efficient as it could be. Because what we're seeing, companies that implement Botdoc, their overall security posture is much greater because they're putting a more secure solution in place. But because it's more convenient, what we're actually seeing is we're seeing companies who are closing transactions faster with less human touch points and a lot less friction in the transaction. So, and then 2 more slides, and then we'll get to Q&A. So I see quite a few questions coming in. So pricing, I don't think anybody on the phone today is really going to be too concerned with the API. If you are, then you can definitely contact us, and this would be building this experience into an existing system you had. But for most people on the phone, you'll be concerned about our application or a SaaS-based tool. We just call it the app. So it's $15 per user per month, or $12 if paid annually. And we do have some volume discounts depending on how many users you would ultimately need. And then there is the ability to to white label the capability. There are certain things that can't be white labeled, certain things that can't. But there's definitely the ability to so your customers know that, hey, they're definitely dealing with you and not somebody else. So what we are looking for everybody to do is, like the other ICBA banks that are already using this and paying for it and seeing results, is even if you just want to try it, is email Tracy Fox and request a free 30-day trial. We'll give you up to 20 users. Most of the time, the ICBA banks that have taken us up on this are using between 5 and 10. There's no contracts, no credit cards to set up anything. Literally, you can use it for a month, and we'll send you over our due diligence package right away, so that any check boxes internally that need to be done from your security teams, you guys can take care of that. And then what we'll do is, even with a free trial account, one of our Botdoc customer service reps will actually help that team set up the account. We schedule it for 20 minutes. I think it really only takes about 10 at most. They'll tell them exactly how to use it, actually get their account set up on the phone, and actually have them start Botdocing each other while we're on the phone, and then enjoy at least 30 days of happier customers. And if you want to move forward after that, it's really a pretty easy process to get it set up. We have some banks that will pay by check, and some banks that will pay by credit card just right on the platform and upgrade the account. So there's a couple ways to do it. No long-term contracts, and it's pretty straightforward. So Tracy's your point of contact, and we'd love to have some of you guys as trial users to kind of test it out. So that kind of concludes our portion of it. I know we've got quite a few questions that came in. So Janine, I don't know if you want to kind of kick off the Q&A or how you want to handle that.
Certainly, Carl. We do have a number of questions, so let's get started. First question, is there a document retention period for documents that are sent to your servers?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So everything we do is in Microsoft Azure. So it's the highest security environment. What we do is we don't want the long, like FedEx, right? They deliver the package. They don't want responsibility for the package. So we actually have a policy that After 14 days, they get removed from our system because we are not ultimately the ultimate resting place. If there's a document that you receive for a consumer, it ultimately needs to either go into your mortgage LOS or your banking onboarding system, whatever that is. But what does stay in our environment forever is all the tracking information. So you will always have the file name, the IP address, the phone number or email it came from. You'll have all that information that will be retained even if you ever cancel your account, the information will still be retained in there. But what we don't retain is the actual payload. We don't want the long-term liability, and you don't want us to have that long-term liability either. So everything stays for 14 days, and then the documents get removed.
Okay, here's an interesting one. What if a customer decides to send something with a virus embedded? Does the system check for that?
So we do have that capability available if that's something you need. We do have a lot of customers that check their own documents anyway because, if we use Microsoft's environment, they say, well, we want to use our own environment. So they actually end up double checking it. So if that's something that a provider needed, then we can absolutely work with you on that from that perspective.
Great, Carl.
Great question.
Okay, the next question was about pricing. So I think we've covered that. If you still have a question about pricing after Carl covered that, please just re-enter it more specifically, and we'll come back to that. Okay, do you have an SOC2 report?
We do, yep. So we have a SOC 2 report. We've had our SOC 2 Type 1 completed, and we're actually currently undergoing our SOC 2 Type 2, which is lots of fun. For most banks, that's been sufficient enough, and we do have a letter from the company that's doing our Type 2 if that's needed as well.
All right. Is there an interface ribbon that will allow Botdoc to work from within Outlook?
So currently, not today. So we don't have an Outlook plugin that would work in Outlook. That is something that is on our roadmap, and one of the things that we're excited about is working with more and more ICBA banks, is getting more and more feedback on things that they would like to see, so that we can advance those and move those things up on the roadmap. So great question.
Okay. So here's one that's just a little open-ended, but perhaps you can discuss, how is your system set up so it's secure?
Oh, yeah, great question. So yeah, I could probably take this one a different couple angles. So as I mentioned before, we're on Microsoft Azure. So everything that ICBA would be doing would route through their U.S. central location, so nothing's going to go overseas. Of course, we joke sometimes or say, yeah, we send everything to China. But no, so everything's U.S. central, and we do have redundancy built in there. So if there's a catastrophic failure of some sort, natural disaster, that the Botdoc will always be up and running. But for those of you for whoever asked this question or any other that's a little bit more technical, so we use AES 256-bit encryption and TLS. So it's an extra layer of encryption for the entire process. And ultimately, we don't just use Azure's encryption, we actually use our own encryption. And each session is actually encrypted differently. And we don't even know the encryption keys. It's all at the application level. So even if I had a rogue developer for some reason that wanted to try and look at documents, we literally can't even see the documents that are inside the system. So it just adds a couple of different layers of security there. Good question.
Great. Okay, Carl, I'm actually the one moving this deck. I wanted to go back and just park here on getting started in case there are people out there that are interested in that free 30-day trial, that would be up here as we continue on, because we have more questions.
Oh, yeah, great.
I like this one.
Great.
How hard is it to set up and start using Botdoc?
Oh yeah. So we continually always try and make things easier and easier. So we have so literally if like those of you that set up that did the demo today, on that page that where Tracy's face is, that digital leave behind business card, there's actually a green button. You could actually click on that to set up a free account. It comes with 10 free uses. But what we would tell you is that if you did want to move for just testing this for free, is it literally takes about 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the most, to get you guys set up so that you can have 5, 10, so many users. The admin interface is very, very simple, and we can actually it's just as easy as typing in somebody's email and inviting them to your account. And then usually what we'll do is we'll go ahead and load your logo in there, just so you can kind of see it pseudo white labeled, and start using. But like I said, we schedule 20-minute for a quick onboarding. It usually takes maybe 10 minutes at most. It's pretty easy to get set up and get started.
Great. Okay, so we have a few more questions. But before we get to those, I just noticed some of you might be interested in like pricing information, any one of these slides. If you join late, know that you can download a PDF version of the slide deck right now from the platform. So before we disconnect, I wanted to remind you, check out Event Resources. It's on the left side of your screen. Click on that drop-down menu, and from there you can download a PDF of the slides without being disconnected from the webinar. Okay, next question, Carl. What's the typical use case ICBA banks are using this for?
Yeah. Okay, so so the typical use case is pre-application documents, or it can also be trailing documents for underwriting. So whether it's a commercial, residential loan, etc. So there's a lot of ways to handle that. But the most popular scenario is using the personal URL and the email signature block, because that's what we call a set it and forget it. So the banks will, for the people who have accounts, they'll put that link in their email signature block, and they can use it right away. And that way, customers can send them stuff without them even having to log in to initiate that session. So I would say anytime you're going to onboard a new client or customer, whether it be an ID or some kind of personal information, that would be the ideal use case. Or like I said, you need bank statements, pay stubs, W-2s, tax returns for, a loan, insurance, whatever your business is. And even on the investment side, we have quite a few banks that have like wealth divisions where they're doing investments, et cetera. They use it quite a bit too, to either pull in information or actually deliver some kind of statement or whatnot. So there's a lot of scenarios there, but the number one use case right now is using that personal URL in the email signature block.
Great. And then this one, do you have a minimum contract length?
We do not. So we have majority of the ICBA banks will do a 12-month. They'll go ahead and pay for their users on an annual basis because they get a discount. They get a $1 discount per user. But we do have a couple that just pay monthly. But as far as like, hey, we got to tie into a 3-year contract or a 2-year contract, nope. We don't have anything like that. Our philosophy is that if we're not providing the value for you, where you would want to keep using the tool, then we shouldn't, be tying you into that contract, and we're pretty confident about that.
Great. Wow. fun webinar, and thank you to all our attendees for your great questions. If we didn't get to your question, please know that someone will reach out to you via email with an answer. So thank you, everyone, for attending, and I especially want to thank Carl for sharing his expertise with us today. Later this week, please watch for a follow-up email. It will contain a link to the recording of today's webinar. Thanks again for joining us. That concludes our webinar. Have a great day.